painting won't pay bills." Gloria sneered from the doorway of my studio, her manicured nails tapping impatiently against the frame. "When are you going to grow up and get a real job? Something my James deserves." I didn't look up, carefully layering shadows on the mountain peaks in front of me. 5 years of marriage had trained me to tune her out, to let her words slide off like rain against stone. My name is Elena Martinez, and at 32, I had spent the last decade building a life Gloria Richardson would never understand. To her, I was just a disappointment, a woman who played with paints instead of securing a proper corporate career like her golden boy, James. She stepped into my space, uninvited, the click of her designer heels sharp against the hardwood floor. "You know, Elena, I saw a wonderful position at James's firm. A respectable office job. It would do you some good." I set my brush down and exhaled slowly. "I appreciate your concern, Gloria, but I'm happy with my art." She scoffed, plucking up one of my smaller canvases like it was a piece of discarded junk mail. "Happy doesn't pay for the lifestyle my son deserves. This," she waved a dismissive hand at my studio, "this is a hobby. A woman should contribute to her household, not hide in here like a child." If only she knew. For years, I had been selling my paintings under a pseudonym, building a reputation that would make her pearls clutch themselves. But James insisted we keep it quiet. Mom's traditional, honey, she wouldn't understand. Gloria's gaze swept the room with thinly veiled disdain. My sanctuary, a converted garage bathed in golden afternoon light, filled with the scent of oils and turpentine, was just another thing she saw as disposable. "At least you could paint something pretty," she mused, gesturing vaguely at my current piece. "People like flowers, something tasteful, something that actually sells." I almost laughed. The moody landscape she dismissed so easily had a waiting list of collectors. My work under E.M. Rivers hung in galleries across the country. "Passion is nice," she continued, her voice syrupy with condescension, "but it doesn't put food on the table. James works so hard, and what do you do? Lock yourself away with paintbrushes like some dreamy little girl." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from my gallery. "Major collector interested in your mountain series. 7-figure offer. Call ASAP." I slid my phone back into my pocket, suppressing a smile. Gloria hadn't noticed. She was too busy straightening her blouse, preparing to deliver her final decree. "James and I have been talking about your situation," she said, satisfaction dripping from every syllable. "This needs to stop, Elena. It's time you joined the real world." I froze. "My situation?" "He agrees with me," she said triumphantly. "This little hobby of yours is holding both of you back. He could have been partner by now if he didn't have to explain why his wife spends all day playing with paints instead of having a proper career." A slow, cold anger settled in my chest. James and I would be having a conversation later. "My art is my career, Gloria." She laughed. "Oh, please. When was the last time you actually sold anything? And those little commission pieces for your friends don't count." I stared at her, debating whether to tell her about the collectors in New York, the auction sales, or the private buyer in Paris who had just commissioned an entire series. But James had always insisted, "It's easier than dealing with my mother." "I do all right," I said simply. Her expression darkened, not for much longer. "James has agreed. This space will make the perfect home office for him. Somewhere professional. You'll need to clear it out by the weekend." I went still. "This is my studio," I said carefully. "Was your studio," she corrected, smiling. "We've already ordered his new furniture." 5 years of biting my tongue, of compromise, of letting Gloria belittle my passion because James swore it was better than causing drama. In that moment, it all became clear. "No," I said quietly. Her head snapped up. "Excuse me?" I said no. I met her gaze, unflinching. "This is my space, my career, and you have no right to make decisions about it." Her face twisted with rage. "After everything I've done for you? You are exactly why James could have done better." She stormed forward, grabbing a finished canvas, one from the very series the collector wanted. Before I could stop her, she hurled it to the ground. The sharp edge of the easel tore through the fabric. "Gloria." She didn't stop. She reached for another painting, her breath coming in furious huffs. "If you won't listen to reason," she snarled, "then maybe it's time for some tough love." I stood frozen as my mother-in-law, So proud, so refined, so desperate for control. Began ripping through my work like a storm. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly fathom, was that she wasn't just destroying hobby paintings. She was tearing through pieces worth thousands, some worth tens of thousands. And every second of her tantrum was being recorded by the security cameras I had installed to protect my very valuable work. I pulled out my phone and hit record, documenting the wreckage firsthand. Sometimes revenge isn't about shouting. Sometimes it's just about letting people reveal exactly who they are. Finally, she stopped, panting, surrounded by the ruins of what she thought was just a silly little dream. Now, she announced, smoothing her blouse, you can focus on being the kind of wife my son deserves. I met her gaze calmly, then pressed send on the video. Thank you, Gloria. Her expression flickered. For what? I smiled. For showing me exactly who you are. Now would you like to know exactly who I am? Gloria's smug satisfaction at wrecking my studio didn't last long. My phone buzzed relentlessly and I put the call on speaker, letting her hear every word. Rivers, this is Marcus from Hostin Gallery. The collector is ready to wire the 7-figure payment for the Mountain series. When can we arrange pickup? Gloria's face drained of color as I replied, calm but deliberate. We have a problem, Marcus. Several pieces from the series were just destroyed, intentionally. I have video proof. A stunned silence, then Marcus's voice sharpened. Destroyed? Those works are insured for millions. Who would? I turned to Gloria, now sinking into my paint-splattered chair, hands trembling. My mother-in-law wanted to teach me a lesson about what real women do for a living. Her lips parted, barely a whisper escaping. Rivers? You're Ian Rivers? I nodded, still addressing Marcus. Send the insurance adjusters. I'll forward the footage. After ending the call, I faced Gloria fully. Yes, I'm Ian Rivers. The artist whose painting sold for $300,000 last month. The one whose work hangs in museums. The one whose little hobby pays for that luxury car you love to brag about James driving. She stammered. But that's impossible. Rivers is. Is what, Gloria? Successful? Professional? A real career? I gestured to the shredded canvases littering the floor. You just destroyed roughly $2 million worth of art. Art that was already sold. Art that was insured. Her voice barely held. James never told me. I exhaled, shaking my head. Because he knew you'd never respect it. He thought keeping the peace was easier than dealing with your judgment. And I went along with it. I laughed bitterly. We see how well that worked out. My phone buzzed again. Messages from the insurance company. They were sending someone immediately. I forwarded the footage while Gloria watched, horrified. Elena, I didn't know, she whispered. No, you didn't bother to know. You were too busy forcing your narrow definition of womanhood onto me. Desperate, she grasped at straws. We can fix this. James and I will make it right. I arched a brow. With what money, Gloria? These pieces were worth more than your house. She smoothed her expensive blouse with shaking hands. You can't tell James. It would break his heart. I let out a slow breath, leveling my gaze at her. Break his heart. Like how you two planned to take away my studio. Like how you've spent years belittling my career while living off its success. The security system chimed, insurance adjusters, along with Marcus. As they documented the wreckage, their expressions turned grave. This is deliberate destruction, one adjuster noted. The insurance company will demand full restitution. Gloria's face crumpled. Elena, please, I'm James's mother. You can't do this to me. I met her pleading eyes with quiet finality. I'm not doing anything to you, Gloria. You did this to yourself. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, staring at the torn canvases. The collector will be devastated. These were meant to be the centerpiece of their new museum wing. Gloria blinked, stunned. Museum wing? Yes, Gloria. That moody landscape series you mocked. It was commissioned for the Modern Art Museum's new Natural Light exhibition. They've been promoting it for months. The weight of her actions finally hit. Her carefully constructed poise shattered, mascara streaked tears trailing down her cheeks. What can I do? There must be something. I exhaled steady. Start by leaving my studio. The insurance company will handle the rest. And Gloria? I held her gaze. Don't ever tell me what a real woman does again. She fled. Marcus lingered. Elena, I'm so sorry. The collector will want answers. I surveyed the wreckage, my mind already working. Tell them I'll create something new. Better. Sometimes destruction leads to inspiration. After they left, I sat alone, surrounded by the remains of years of work. My phone lit up, a message from James. Mom called crying. What happened? I inhaled deeply and typed. Come home. We need to talk about why you told your mother she could turn my studio into your office, and why you've spent years hiding my success. His response came fast. I was trying to protect you from her. No, you were protecting her from reality, and in doing so, you let this happen. I looked at the devastation around me, and strangely, I felt free. No more hiding. No more minimizing my success for someone else's comfort. As I started cleaning, I noticed something that made me smile. The large canvas I'd been working on, the one Gloria sneered at, had survived untouched. Sometimes the universe has a sense of irony. A final message lit up my screen, this one from the museum curator. Heard what happened? Don't worry about the series. We want a new commission about transformation and resilience. Your price, your timeline. I stared at the words, then at my studio, and felt a familiar spark of inspiration. Gloria thought she destroyed my art, but all she'd done was give me something more powerful to say. As the sun set through the shattered space, I heard James's car pull into the driveway. Another hard conversation was coming. But I was ready. No more hiding. No more compromising. No more letting anyone else define my worth. That evening, standing in the ruins of my studio, I watched James take in the wreckage. His expression shifted from shock to anger, then finally shame. He ran a hand through his hair, his fingers tightening around a shredded canvas. I never thought she'd actually do this, he murmured. When she mentioned converting the studio, I don't know what I thought. You thought it was easier to placate her than to stand up to her, I said, my voice steady. Just like it was easier to downplay my career than force her to see me for who I really am. James exhaled sharply. I'll make this right. I'll make sure she pays for everything, the damages, the commissions. She can't afford it, I interrupted. And even if she could, that's not the point. His eyes met mine. Then what is? This isn't about money, James. It's about the fact that you spent years protecting her feelings at the expense of my dignity. I gestured to the destroyed canvases around us. How long were you going to let her believe I was just playing around? How long were you going to let her belittle me? The silence that followed stretched between us, heavy with everything we'd never said. I thought I was keeping the peace, he admitted finally. I never meant for this to happen. I know, I said, but it did. And now we have to decide where we go from here. In the weeks that followed, things changed fast. The insurance claim was settled quickly, thanks to the security footage. Gloria faced not only financial consequences but public fallout as well. Word spread fast in the art world. Meanwhile, my identity as Ian Rivers became public knowledge, triggering a wave of interviews, features, and new opportunities. The museum that had commissioned the Mountain series pivoted, commissioning a new collection, this time on destruction and resilience. They even planned to display footage of Gloria's rampage alongside my new work, turning an act of destruction into a statement on transformation. James moved out for a while, saying he needed time to rethink everything. I let him. I had work to do. The new pieces that emerged from the wreckage were different, raw, powerful. They told a story of breaking free, of rising from ruins. 3 months later, as I put the finishing touches on my newly renovated studio, Gloria showed up unannounced. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of her own actions had finally settled on her shoulders. The insurance company is garnishing my wages, she said without preamble. It'll take me years to pay back the damages. I didn't look up from my work. That sounds about right. I've been in therapy, she continued, trying to understand why I needed to control everything. Why I did what I did. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Elena, not just for this, but for all of it. I set my brush down and finally met her gaze. I appreciate that. But you know words aren't enough, right? She nodded, her eyes wet. I saw your new work. The magazine feature. It's incredible. I never let myself see it before. But now I get it. I get why people love it so much. I glanced at the painting in front of me, a phoenix rising from a canvas that had been torn and reassembled. Sometimes we have to lose everything to finally see what was there all along. She left quietly, and I returned to my work. That night, James called. "Can I come to the opening?" he asked. "Not as your protector, just as someone who believes in you." The next evening, the exhibition debuted to record-breaking success. The gallery buzzed with energy, collectors drawn to the raw, defiant beauty of the new series. The story of destruction and rebirth resonated with them, but more importantly, it resonated with me. Gloria had tried to define what a real woman should be, but in trying to tear me down, she had only given me my greatest inspiration. As I stood in my studio later that night, watching the last rays of sunlight streak across my work, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, not resentment, just gratitude. For my strength, for my voice, and even in some strange way for Gloria, who had tried to erase me, but instead helped me paint the clearest picture of who I truly was.